Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into a major event, Operation Midnight Hammer, those U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities back on June 22nd, 2025.
Yeah, a really significant operation. It definitely sent ripples everywhere.
Absolutely. And the targets were very specific, weren't they? We're talking Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. These are, well-known centers for Iran's nuclear work.
Key infrastructure, definitely.
And the way they went about it, B-2 stealth bombers, carrying, get this, 14 massive ordnance penetrators, MOPs, the 30,000-pound versions.
Which was a first, right? First
Yeah.
time those specific bunker busters were used in combat.
Yeah.
Designed exactly for hitting hardened, buried sites like Fordow.
Exactly. And it wasn't just the bombers. They also had Tomahawk missiles coming in from a submarine, sort of a pincer movement almost, hitting from different angles.
A coordinated attack, yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to overwhelm any defenses.
So you see all that, this huge display of force, precision technology. You'd probably expect a pretty clear picture of what happened, what the result was.
You would think so. But that's actually the core of the challenge here and what makes this deep dive so interesting. We had these wildly conflicting stories about how successful it actually was.
Conflicting. How so?
Well, on one side, you had U.S. officials, President Trump included, calling it a, quote, spectacular military success, saying the sites were completely and totally obliterated. Very definitive language.
Okay, that sounds clear enough.
But then you look at other assessments, maybe from different intelligence branches, independent analysts, and they paint a, let's say, much more nuanced picture. Maybe not quite so obliterated.
So not quite mission accomplished then. What does that nuanced picture actually suggest? Why the gap?
Exactly. Not so simple. The gap comes from, well, it's just really hard to know for sure what happened inside those deeply buried reinforced facilities without actually being there.
Right, you can see craters from space, I suppose, but not what's broken deep underground.
Precisely. Satellite photos show impacts, sure, but judging the internal damage, the state of the centrifuges or other equipment, much, much harder. And this ambiguity, states sometimes use that strategically.
Makes sense. Keep your adversaries guessing.
Yeah, and it makes it tough for anyone on the outside, allies included, to really gauge the true military outcome. Iran's official statements certainly played into that uncertainty.
Okay, so given that ambiguity, maybe deliberate ambiguity, how did Iran actually react on the ground?
Well, their immediate reaction was interesting. You had officials like Supreme Leader Khamenei condemning the strike, calling it criminal, outrageous, that sort of thing.
Standard rhetoric, perhaps?
Perhaps. But Tehran also acknowledged that the sites were, quote, badly damaged. They admitted there was significant impact. But crucially, they insisted there was no irreversible harm.
Okay, so you hit us, it hurt, but we'll recover.
That's the message, essentially,
Yeah.
yeah. And they were quick to point out no civilian casualties were reported, which probably factored into the next moves.
And those next moves didn't take long at all, did they? Felt like things escalated almost immediately.
Oh, very fast. The very next day, June 23rd, Iran launched missiles. The target, Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar.
Wow, Al Udeid, that's huge. That's the main U.S. hub in the region.
Exactly, a major statement. Reports vary, maybe 6, maybe up to 14 missiles fired. Thankfully, U.S. and Qatar defenses intercepted most of them. No casualties reported there either.
Still, even without casualties, hitting Al Udeid, that must have set off alarm bells everywhere.
Absolute massive fallout. Instantly, you saw Gulf airspace shut down.
Yeah.
Emergency meetings at the UN Security Council. Condemnation pouring in from Russia, China.
It just shows how interconnected it all is, how quickly a regional clash can go global.
It really underlines the fragility, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Especially in that part of the world.
Which kind of brings us to now. There's a ceasefire, things are quieter on the surface, but it feels tense, unstable.
Incredibly volatile, yeah.
Yeah.
The ceasefire is holding, mostly, but the underlying issues are obviously still there.
And Iran is making threats or warnings, saying it reserves all options, even mentioning closing the Strait of Hormuz.
Which, for you listening, is a critical choke point for global oil shipments. Closing that would have huge economic consequences worldwide.
A serious threat. And meanwhile, President Trump hasn't ruled out more strikes if Iran retaliates further.
Right, so the pressure's still definitely on. It's like a standoff, but with very high stakes.
So, thinking about all this, you've got this major military operation, Midnight Hammer, but completely different stories about whether it even worked. You've got retaliation, global tension, ongoing threats.
It's a complex picture.
It really is. And it leaves you wondering, doesn't it? In this environment, with such conflicting narratives, how do you figure out what really happened? What's the real impact? And maybe more importantly, what does it mean